you shouldn't just focus on an A. But I would say for most IB kids, a B is probably like, oh my God, I failed the class. Oh, I failed that test. I got a B. I've said that before. A lot of people say that. Really, it's okay. I think if you get a few Bs, that's B's, C's, because a C's technically average, that's fine. Most of the people in IB though, they'll get a B, and the next thing they want to do is, how can I improve so when I take the test again, I'll get an A? So to answer your question, you will be fine with lower scores, but most of the time you still should receive like the similar grades in IB.
What I would say to that is like, what I've learned through like applying college and everything is that what really matters is like your improvement. And so like even if you get a B, that's definitely not the end of the world. They want to see that you've worked hard and you've improved. And so like maybe if you know you're not good at something, then don't like force yourself to take the IB class, but even if you get like a lower grade, then maybe like take a summer class or something, and to like show colleges that you're working hard to improve. And also the grading scale for IB classes is different than for regular classes, and it's like a little bit boosted. So what would be an A in a regular class, like the percentage to get an A for a regular class is a 93 to 100, but for an IB class, I think it's 92 to 100. So
that's right. And then an A minus was down to 88 instead of 90 in a regular class. So we have a different grading scale in our IB department because we don't want to punish kids for choosing to challenge themselves. We want to encourage kids to challenge themselves. And so that recognizes the rigor of those courses. So yeah, within the IB department, the scale is different.
What's the B range?
So it's a 12-point scale, which means you start at 100 and go down to 88 for an A, and then start at 88 and go down to 76 for a B, and then start at 76 and go down to 64?
Yes.
I don't know. That's the scale, because basically what we figure is most of these kids taking IB classes are A and B students anyway. So, you know, the idea is that we're not punishing kids for challenging themselves.
And it's not graded on a curve, it's just like
It's not a curve. It's all criterion based. That's all of the classes. They operate off of IB rubrics, which are all criterion based.
Whenever I buy something on Amazon, I look at the 5-star reviews and I look at the 1-star reviews. So I actually like to hear the worst thing about IB.
Oh, okay. What's the most challenging? Is it that the most challenging?
That's a more polite way.
Okay, what's the most challenging aspect of the program? Anybody want to answer that? Will?
I think if we want to say the worst thing, it will be your teachers are really nice and they're like, oh, I'm giving you a really big project so you can assess you on several things. It's due on Tuesday of next week. You go to your second period. I'm giving you a really big project. It's due Tuesday next week. And there's a tight schedule for teachers, but sometimes it gets really annoying because they'll all put that one major thing on the same day. And even if they give you a week ahead of time, they know it's not gonna start, you're not really gonna care about it as much as the night before. So I try to space it out evenly, but then that last night is where it becomes crunch time. And I'd say for the IB, that's kind of the annoying factor, because teachers, it's hard for them to actually like make sure they don't put things on the same day.
Yeah, I would say the worst part about IB is there are going to be some very late nights. And that's just the reality of it. There are times where you didn't plan out your time well, where sports went late and then you had to work on Sunday, so you didn't get to your homework for the week, that kind of thing. And I would say that the worst part is either showing up unprepared to a class that you want to be involved in, that you want to impress your classmates and do the best you can, and B is staying up all night and having a rough week because you're not sleeping, but you're getting the work done. So that'd probably be the worst.
For me, I think the worst part of it is the unclear instructions. Whenever you try to do a project, whenever you try to do homework, I mean, the teachers will give you brief instructions in class, but you really have to look through the rubric and the given like information packet. But it's still always unclear and people struggle. That's why we have like Facebook pages and we all discuss, oh, we heard this from this teacher, we heard this from the teacher. It's all agreeing and disagreeing things. So whenever you try to do like a large project, the instruction is so unclear that you don't know what to do, and you're always guaranteed you're not going to get 100% on it.
I think Will had mentioned about how the projects tend to overlap, but also sometimes the curriculum can overlap. So especially with the math-based sciences, you might learn a certain concept and struggle through problems in that specific science like physics or chemistry. And then about a month later, you'll learn an easier way to do those in math. But then you realize that in those sciences, you'll go up and ask your teacher, can I just do it this way instead? And they'll be like, no, you have to do it. You have to do it the harder way. And so at that point, just the anger, I guess. You can't really do it the way that you want to do it, the way that it's easiest for you.
The majority of the tests that you take in IB classes aren't going to be the short answer type of things where everything is, there's one right answer like math, but a lot of them are essays, and I think the biggest problem for me is with essays is getting a grade from a teacher and not being able to tell why they gave that grade, or being able to understand their comments. So that probably is one of the most challenging things, especially for a person that has a lot of self-inflicted pressure to get a good grade. So try to understand that. Don't argue with them.
Okay, so so what I think is the worst, like specifically the worst moment would be when you have a class that isn't exactly self-study, where the teachers are involved, like IB physics, and then self-study unit comes up, and and you're not used to the different kind of learning, and then I think we had like 3 big projects due on a Friday, and yeah, that was bad. I didn't sleep that night.
I would have to say the worst part of IB for me is probably the people on the Facebook page who like to create more stress. I mean, most of our Facebook pages are really productive, but there's always that one person the day before a big test or a big assignment who likes to change what was actually required, and at that point you're so tired that you don't even remember what the teacher really said, so you end up doing more work. So I would think that's probably one of the most worst parts, and the stamina to finish your test. I would say our history tests aren't hard per se. I mean, it's a 2-page essay, single space, you could get through it, but the fact is that you don't have a lot of chance to practice those outside of class unless you take the time to actually sit down and have one of your parents make essays for you. So I feel like having the stamina and the hand strength to write it in 50 minutes is probably the worst part for me, but it gets better throughout the year.
What I would say the worst part is that like a lot of your tests will be cumulative for the entire year. And so like, and if they are cumulative, then your IB exam will be cumulative. So you have to know everything. And like before IB, like I would learn a unit, I would take the exam, and then I wouldn't have to study that unit for ever. But now it's like when I'm studying for a test, I have to study everything that I've learned throughout the course. And like with HL, at least I know with my bio class, we only have 2 exams. We only have 2 tests during the year, the midterm and the final. And so for me now, since I'm a senior and I'm taking HL, the midterm is cumulative for 1.5 years, and then our final exam will be cumulative for the entirety of the 2 years. So that's like the worst part for me. But on like the flip side, you really cement that information into your brain. And by the end of the year, you have that information down, and you really know it. And so when you go to college and you take your biology course, it'll be really easy for you.
I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to kind of give my final little piece, and then after that, I'll have you give the students a hand, and then they will be hanging around to answer more questions for about 15 minutes. So let's see, back row right there. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, whoops. Okay, we'll take 2 questions. We'll take you, and you go first, and then you.
Okay, so if you take Algebra 2 freshman year, and then whatever you take sophomore year, is that the first year? Is that like considered?
I'm going to answer that because there's 2. Okay, so there's 2 paths you could go.